Thank you, Dr. Ashok. Good morning, everyone. As you can see, I'm fairly young, right? I hope I still look young. So I've been in this business for almost 15 years now, right? So I started it right after I came back from college, from London. And somehow I got this idea that there is gold in electronic waste. And us Indians are extremely fascinated with gold, right? So, you are extremely naive at that age. And I thought, this is my $1 billion idea. I'll just go back and extract gold, and there must be some, off-the-shelf machinery technology available somewhere in Europe, and that's the mindset that I had at that time. That I'll probably ask my father to fund it all. I was technically supposed to join the family business, being the only son in the family, but I decided to actually get into the recycling business, and my family had no connection with recycling or anything technical for that matter, right? So I came back, and very soon I realized that everything is already being recycled in India. There is often this talk about circular economy and circularity, etc. But I think us as Indians, we often, forget to highlight the fact that India is probably the most circular nation in the world. Now, the environmental, health, and safety aspects of this recycling is something which is extremely debatable and is quite alarming. And this is why there is a need to introduce these rules and to organize how recycling takes place, and segregate the activities between passive and active activities, so that we can definitely safeguard the environment, safeguard the health and safety, and also ensure the kind of material which is being recovered is strategically aligned with the goals of our nation. Goals in terms of the growth that we envision, goals in terms of the material security that we need to achieve, the import dependence that we need to reduce, etc. Now, of late, I think the term, electric mobility has gained a lot of traction. The term lithium battery uh, and lithium battery recycling has gained a lot of traction. Very often you hear news about, lithium reserves being recovered, being discovered in J&K and then Northeast, and some other reserve being discovered here and there. But the truth of the matter is that India is quite lagging behind when it comes to material security in terms of all the compounds that are needed for electrification of our mobility fleet, for moving toward the greener economy, greener transportation, etc. And as Dr. Ashok earlier highlighted in his extremely insightful presentation, that rare earths are a cause for alarm now for our country. With the stand that China has adopted now, in terms of creating a much tighter grip on who gets access to their rare earth, and whether it is being used for militarization or not, or for military purpose or domestic purpose. It is eventually in their hands to declare what is military and what is non-military. So we think that it's time for us to wake up in terms of ensuring the material security for rare earths. Now, coming back to the electrification of our mobility fleet, largely we are talking about metals like lithium, cobalt, nickel, manganese, and there are some lesser used material in electrification of mobility, which is some other titanium based compounds and some other rare earths like lanthanum, etc. That's also there in electric vehicles. And on top of that, all of these electric vehicles alongside the battery need a motor to operate. And all of these motors are currently relying on the use of rare earth permanent magnets. And that's where you have these rare earth, extremely expensive and critical rare minerals like neodymium and dysprosium and all of these metals, which are extremely rare and extremely expensive and extremely difficult to recover. Uh, we have just, Exigo Recycling has just entered into a joint venture with American Resources Corporation. They specialize in the recovery of individual rare earth oxides that are used largely in the manufacturing of rare earth permanent magnets and other electric vehicle related applications. So we expect that this joint venture has already started operating in a pilot phase, and we expect it to be fully operational by January 2026. That's the target. We are working full time, 24/7, to ensure that it is up and running within time. Now, having just mentioned the importance of lithium and battery recycling, in 2021, our government actually decided to work on a project to ensure that we are able to uh, organize the entire waste generation in terms of lithium-ion batteries, to organize the entire handling and the recycling, the export or the import thereof of these critical materials. And that's when eventually, and I myself worked with Niti Aayog and the MOEF on the drafting of these rules. And that's when the battery waste management rules called BWMR 2022 were introduced the first time. So these rules were preceded by the 2001 and 2010 battery waste management rules. But at that time, the larger focus was on handling of lead acid batteries. And lead acid batteries are the most widely recycled commodities across the world. So the recycling rate for lead acid battery is very, very high. So that is at this moment not a cause for concern for us. So all of these rules were then converged into one single rule, which is the BWMR 2022 rule. The primary objective of these rules were to ensure that we can create an efficient recycling industry for the lithium-ion batteries, and we can ensure material security through this recycling regime. So later on during the presentation, I'll highlight the steps taken by the government. And I must say, and I must commend the MOEF, that it is very rarely seen that in the first effort, they're able to hit the right notes. But as far as BWMR 2022 is concerned, they are on the right track, and we are seeing some extremely good results after its implementation. There are gaps here and there in the rules which are still being worked out. They are still, it's an evolving process, but I think so far what we are going to witness is going to be of extremely crucial importance for the government, and they've done a good job. So largely the 2022 rules, they have introduced extended producer responsibility within the system. So EPR means that the responsibility of collecting the end-of-life products, which is lithium-ion batteries and other type of batteries here, depending upon the application, automotive and industrial batteries also. So the responsibility is with the producers, and in India, it is a financial responsibility, not a material responsibility. And the difference between the two is that if it is a material responsibility, so let's say if Samsung introduces a lithium-ion cell, a cylindrical cell in the market, then Samsung must collect that individual cell, which is its own brand, its own product. In the case of a financial obligation, what happens is that they must ensure that there is enough financial incentive and channelization within the system to collect the same category of waste. So Samsung may collect, let's say, Panasonic cell, and Panasonic will eventually end up collecting Samsung cell. And so it largely focuses on a larger collective effort by the industry to get rid of the waste that's going to landfills or that's going in the hands of the informal illegal recycler, which is extremely damaging for the environment. So the Central Pollution Control Board is the monitoring agency for these rules, and they have introduced an online portal. And with the digital governance, we can always take it for granted that it will always introduce more transparency, ease of use, and create an accountable system for all the participants. Can you move to the next slide, please? Next one, please. So what has been done is that now on the producers of portable and EV batteries and automotive and industrial batteries, and even the importers of these batteries, there have been recycling and recovery targets that have been created. So there is 70% target this year, going up to 90% by 2027. And for automotive and industrial, it's 55%, going up to 60% next year. Next slide, please. So, I mean, the stakeholder consultations took place during the introduction phase of these rules, and this is the takeaway from those stakeholder consultation meetings, where a lot of advantages were highlighted in terms of the reusability of material, traceability. We are currently operating in a global market. The vehicles being manufactured on the manufacturing lines here from the likes of Mahindra, Tata, they are being explored to be exported into other markets like European markets, and they have adopted policies in terms of minimum recycled content, etc. So to align with those global norms, these rules really come in handy. They create an incentive, or rather, a direction for all of these automotive players also to ensure that their operations are and their supply chains are aligned with the global norms. Uh, Again, there have been targets in terms of minimum use of recycled content that is recovered from the recycling of these batteries. This has proved to be quite challenging for the producers at the moment, and due to various reasons that I'll highlight later on, they've not been able to actually showcase their readiness in terms of meeting these targets. So that's proving to be a disadvantage for them so far, and quite challenging for them also. And in case of non-compliance, under the Environmental Compensation Act, which is part of the Environment Protection Act, uh, EC will be levied upon these producers who fail to comply with any of the aspects that are mentioned in these rules. So that's a cause for concern for producers. And I think now that they've witnessed that the government has a very serious intent to implement these rules, they finally started waking up. And as a battery recycler and as a recycler of these critical minerals, we are getting a lot of traction now in terms of potential tie-ups, getting business. Channelization is being ensured to our facilities for commitment of refined materials, etc. Next slide, please. So in terms of compliance steps, the producers and recyclers are supposed to register on the CPCB portal. They are supposed to file their annual returns that captures the amount of waste they have generated, procured, the amount of material they have used, what is the content of minerals like lithium, cobalt, nickel, manganese, iron, copper, and aluminum that they've used in their batteries. And subsequently, the recyclers are also supposed to fulfill all of these returns and file them by June 30th annually. There have been labeling standards that have been established to ensure that the batteries can be easily identified. And probably at the moment, the Niti Aayog is working on something like a battery passport. So the idea is, as the EU has introduced the battery passport, we can have some sort of a battery passport for our own country to ensure that we are able to track every single cell that's coming into the country and that's been placed on the market, and also what are the chemistries, etc. To eventually, the idea is to design recyclability within the chain, because one of the biggest challenges that we face as recycler is the heterogeneous nature of the kind of waste that we receive. So we have to have processes that are extremely chemistry agnostic, and that in itself creates a very big challenge for the recycling process. So that requires additional capital expenditure. The operating costs are much higher. The kind of solvents, etc., that we have to use are much more expensive and are consumed at a much larger level because of the varied chemistries. And by ensuring that there are voluntary returns submitted on the portal in terms of the net use of these commodities, etc., and the chemistries of batteries being introduced, in the longer run, we can ensure that we can create a map of what's being put out there and what do we expect in terms of recovering from the market when it reaches end of life. And the life of lithium-ion batteries in most of the cases is much shorter compared to electronics in which they are being put out there. So except smartphones, I mean, I think the rising rate of obsolescence in smartphone is another cause for concern for us. And smartphone is a very dense product when it comes to the use of extremely critical materials. There is high amount of usage of lithium, nickel, manganese, copper, aluminum, gold, silver, palladium, platinum, all of these things. So that's another debate. But and there are refurbishers and recyclers on the portal. They are also supposed to put out quarterly returns, and all of these things are going to, I think, play an important role in ensuring that we can have a national policy on ensuring that these materials are recovered, they are supplied back into the manufacturing chain, and they're kept within the country. So export of these material is also another challenge that we need to address. Next slide, please. So the EPS certificate is generated on the CPCB's portal, and producers are given targets in terms of commodities, which is linked to the kind of product that they are placing on the market, the average life, etc., and the commodities that were used in their product. And those products that are placed on the market must come back and the recycler appointed by the producer has to then reach a minimum critical level of recovery to ensure that they hit the recycling targets, and then subsequently they provide a lot of data, audit trail and proof on the CPCB portal, which is audited, and then in turn EPR certificates are issued. So as a recycler, we will issue certificates in terms of lithium, in terms of cobalt, copper, aluminum, so forth, so on. So these certificates are then purchased by the producers. So the way you have the carbon credit trading scheme and carbon offset scheme, so this is technically based on similar principles, and it's operating very well now. So there is, as far as battery is concerned, there is more demand than supply of these certificates on the portal. So currently it is a seller's market so far. And the government has also introduced minimum viability gap criterias for the transaction of these certificates, etc. Next slide, please. So since the introduction, certain amendments were made. The definition of battery was expanded to include the zinc alkaline and zinc manganese non-rechargeable batteries that we use in our remotes and toys, etc. No one was talking about it. India is one of the largest consumer of those batteries, and all of those batteries, unfortunately, as you'll be able to recall, referring to your own habit of dumping them in your waste bin, and they eventually end up in the municipal solid waste. Again, an extremely alarming scenario, because eventually all of these heavy metals leach out into the groundwater supply, they leach out into the soil. There are risks of fire, etc., that you see in all these municipal solid waste streams and sites. And these batteries are one of the reasons for all of that. And then those toxic smoke, etc., that comes out of burning of electrolyte, etc., is then consumed by all the workers working at these sites. So now the targets for the recovery of these end-of-life batteries from these streams have been introduced. They have been mandated, and that was the first amendment, which again addressed this extremely crucial aspect. And also secondary batteries, because in a lot of cases there is a second life to batteries and second life to the application of lithium batteries and even lead acid batteries. So the earlier rules did not cater to that, and that was also introduced in the amendment. Next slide, please. I think this largely, the important thing to note here is that the minimum recycled content was introduced. So what this means is that roughly and this is in terms of weight, not in terms of value, that for the use of manufacturing or production of new cells and batteries, there is a minimum recycled content which has been mandated. So for the portable and EV batteries, it starts from 5% and goes up to 20%. So what is the primary objective behind it? The primary objective is that there is enough demand for the recyclates that we generate as recyclers, and we also finally find incentive to go further downstream and create application specific production grade raw materials, because that in itself requires huge capital investments and huge investment in terms of innovation and R&D, etc. This is something which is so far posing to be a challenge for the industry. So far, they can only comfortably expect to meet these targets for lead acid batteries, and no other type of battery is something that they've explored in terms of using recycled content, etc. And only now the producers have woken up to try and develop partners, vendors, experts within their own departments to ensure that we can recover recycled content, and those recycled contents actually meet the specification of the product that they plan to introduce in the market. So this is going to create a lot of demand for recycled content, which in term itself is a tool to address the viability gap that there may be in terms of recycling. Because as we have seen in terms of the recycled content target for polymers in Europe, that in a lot of cases the recycled polymer is selling at a premium compared to the virgin polymer, which isn't the case in India so far, but with the introduction of recycled content in food and packaging now, starting next year, we see the same scenario happening. And those extra revenues that a recycler can then earn has multiple effects. One being giving the confidence to the recyclers to invest in larger infrastructure, sophisticated technologies. And second being the viability that they generate from this is a tool to divert the waste away from the informal sector, because we are dealing with a scenario. So next slide, please. We can skip this since I was just informed that I'm short on time. So these are some of the salient features in terms of the portal that CPCB has introduced for battery waste management. We feel that it is going to be a very transformative step in terms of addressing this challenge of waste management. Uh, the system is completely centralized, being governed, driven by CPCB. With the introduction of digital governments, the reporting is much better, the data collection is centralized, much organized, and CPCB can do a real-time monitoring of what's happening out there and intervene at the right time, not once something uh, undesirable has happened. They can preemptively intervene, and that's the benefit of such portals. Next slide, please. So this is a slideshow of the. I think there's something wrong with the display in the television. It's not very clear, but I wanted to highlight all of that. But largely, such windows are available on the portal where every single transaction that a producer makes or the recycler makes is captured onto the portal in terms of weight, in terms of classification, etc. And all of this data is given to the CPCB team, and they are able to actually make sense of all this data and eventually figure out who's compliant, who's non-compliant, and also decide a course for the evolution of these rules, whether they are in line with market practices or not. Next, please. This somehow not visible. So I'll just conclude my presentation here because since it's not visible, but largely just wanted to eventually highlight that this subject is of extreme importance for the nation, and finally we are seeing the right kind of efforts being made in this direction. And as a recycler, I must say that we are extremely optimistic about the future of recycling. Having said that, we must also understand that all the stakeholders involved must wake up to the challenge that we are facing right now. We are living in an extremely hostile world right now. You look at the war between Ukraine and Russia. You look at what's happening in the Middle East. You look at what's happening in our own neighborhood. And due to this hostility, I think the new weapon for this latest generation of warfare is, the control on strategic minerals and strategic supply chains, etc. COVID, as Mr. Ashok earlier mentioned, that was a wake-up call for us. And now with this hostility that we are witnessing, the scenario with rare earths, what happened with nickel when the Ukraine-Russia war broke out, and so many other things, I think we must understand the strategic importance of what we must do in order to meet this challenge of this new gen scenario that we are facing. Thank you.